The Window Above, written by James Kelly. Last night, and the one before, I had the strangest dreams. On the first day, I opened my eyes and found my bedroom present in a dark aura, despite the lights being off. Above me, where my ceiling should have been blank, I have nothing in particular on my ceiling, was the outline of what appeared to be a window. I stared in shock, convinced I was asleep and dreaming. But it felt so real. As I lay squinting at the dark window casing, I noticed movement. The window opened upwards, revealing an odious red void. The smell was vomit-inducing, and I screamed. But I felt unable to move. The best I could do was helplessly clutch my sheets. I saw the stars above, but they shone unnaturally. They were closer than they should have been. They had faces. I could see smiles and smirks, grins and grimaces. The stars were alive, but no sooner had I noticed than they had become somber. The stars were upset. They were crying. What was happening? I saw movement in the window above. Below the stars was a crimson river. It was flowing down. Red liquid poured through the empty hatch and into my room. Blood covered my walls, my carpet, and my bed. I screamed and wiped it off my face. The odor of iron that I knew too well from accidentally biting my cheeks was everywhere. My clothes began floating in the oozing pools that covered the carpet and bedposts, and my wall sockets disappeared as it rose. It was coming in faster and faster. I felt a presence. I screamed up into the void. "Leave me alone," I called, spluttering through the blood on my face. Laughter echoed from the window, and a handless force slammed it shut. I lay staring into the void beyond the window, but eventually I drifted off. When I woke up, I realized there was no blood. It had just been a nightmare. That was the first night. Last night I lay in bed. I had almost forgotten about the night before until I came face to face with my ceiling. I thought about how stupid it was to imagine a window was there. There was just plastering. I settled in and began to drift off. I opened my eyes immediately. In the dark, high above me, was the outline of the window. I stared in absolute horror. My voice was lost in my throat. This couldn't be real, I thought. Up above the window there was nothing, not even the red palette of the previous night sky. There was just darkness. A true void. What had I heard? Suddenly, two long fingers scraped the window frame, making an awful screeching. I tried to move, but like before, I was unable. Then, I saw what was there. I saw two large, dark, scaly hands. They were attached to long, long arms that gradually disappeared up into the void behind them. They began to open the window, and I thought I heard people laughing up in the darkness. It sounded like a recording of the laughter of people from the 1950s that you occasionally hear on TV shows or reel tapes. The hands began to feed a long, dark tube down into my room. I trembled and stared in terror as the opening descended to within inches of my face and then stopped. I saw something moving in its dark hole. Something scuttled towards me and fell. A large centipede landed on my face. I was soon covered in centipedes, and they were very big. I swatted them away and covered my face. And there were tarantulas and cockroaches and leeches. Helpless, I teared up. They scuttled and crawled, and I felt the growing weight of living mass writhing on my chest. "Make it stop," I screamed and begged, my voice finally rising from within. "Please stop." I reached over to my bedside table and turned on the light. Nothing. The ceiling was back to normal. There was nothing on me or in the room. But I heard an enraged echoing fading away. A deep but faint cadence. "I'll be back." It was only a dream. An awful one. But a dream. I lay shaking, brushing tiny phantom limbs off my arms and face. There were no insects. No spiders or centipedes or tarantulas. No one said anything. It was a hypnopompic hallucination. But I didn't sleep that night at all. I went to work exhausted and out of my mind. When I came home, I had finally convinced myself truly it was really just a horrid dream, that I would sleep well tonight. Tonight, I am lying with my eyes closed. There was nothing on my ceiling when I first closed my eyes. Wait. What's that? What is that?